Hi, and welcome back to Focal Point AFR Talk. Number to call if you want to join the program, 888-589-8840, 888-589-8840 is the number to call. And I'd like to ask you to respond to two questions. Number one, what do you think of the way in which President Obama's pastor spoke on Easter Sunday about evangelical leaders? What do you think about that? What's your reaction to that? Or you can respond to what the left is doing to Ben Carson. How do you react to the way that they have vilified him, they have demonized him, they forced him to apologize, they're trying to run him off the platform? He was scheduled to be the commencement speaker at Johns Hopkins. The students now have got a petition out there, and he's willing to back out. And the question is, do you think that Ben Carson, well, this could be one of the questions. I want to get your reaction in general. But, do you think he ought to voluntarily step down? Now, I don't. I do not think Ben Carson has a single solitary thing to apologize for to anybody for any reason. His words were well chosen. They were articulate. They were accurate. They were right on the money. He's got nothing for which he needs to apologize. That's why I don't think he ought to voluntarily step down. Now, if they can him, that's a different thing because that's up to them. But he should not make life easy for them by stepping down himself. That's what I think. I want to know what you think. Would you like to see him hang in there? Obviously it's their gig. And if they tell him we're rescinding the invitation, then that's it. You don't show up. I mean, you're not going to be rude and show up where you have been told you're not wanted. God doesn't go places where he's not wanted, where he's disinvited. And Ben Carson's not going to do the same thing either because he is an imitator of God. He's a Christ-like individual. So that's the question, 888-589-8840. Do you think Ben Carson ought to voluntarily step down from the commencement ceremony, or do you think he ought to wait until he is fired? Now, my view is he ought to wait until he is fired. Don't do their dirty work for him. Make them own up to what they're doing. Make them own up to their hatred. Make them own up to their bigotry. Make them own it. And don't do their work for them. He's got nothing to apologize for. If you step down, it makes it look like you're acknowledging some kind of guilt in this circumstance. And so I'm hoping that he'll hang in there. But I will guarantee you, 888-589-8840, I will flat out guarantee you that Ben Carson is mystified by this. He had no idea that he would be the subject of this kind of hatred, that he would be the target of this kind of animosity. He had no idea that this kind of darkness, this kind of just dark, twisted, malevolent hatred was out there for people who do nothing more than defend God's definition of marriage. He had no idea. He's a nice guy. He's been nice to everybody he's ever been in relationship with his entire life. He's never been mean to anybody. He's never been discourteous to anybody. He's never been rude to anybody. He's been kind, loving, caring, giving, and generous his entire life. And all of a sudden, this wave of vitriol washes over him, and I am willing to bet, you and I are aware of it because we deal with this stuff every day. He had no idea that this kind of hatred was out there. Ladies and gentlemen, there is plenty of hatred in this debate, but it's not coming from us. We don't hate anybody. We don't hate homosexuals. We love them. We love them enough to tell them the truth. We don't want to see their lives ravaged by disease and shortened by 10 to 20 years. We don't want to see that for anybody. We love them. And that's why we tell them the truth. We don't hate anybody. But they, ladies and gentlemen, hate us with a living, vitriolic, virulent passion. And Dr. Carson is exhibit A of that hatred. Well, let's go to the phones. Let's go to Lewis in Houston, Texas. Lewis, you're on Focal Point. What's on your mind?
Thank you, Brian. Well, I wanted to remind your listeners of the history of the gay rights movement and NAMBLA. But first I want to say I wish Dr. Carson had not apologized. He didn't do anything wrong. And I believe, even though I wish I would not kowtow in that situation, I'm sure the pressure is immense. Tebow kowtowed. Rush Limbaugh, unfortunately, at one time a few months ago, he apologized for making that connection. But as I said, in the past, I think it was during the 70s, NAMBLA and the gay rights movement walked hand in hand until the gay rights movement realized that they better disassociate with them.
Yeah, and just, Lewis, let me interject here. just for the sake of our listening audience that may not know, NAMBLA stands for the North American Man-Boy Love Association, and that's what they are about. They are about man-boy love, by which they mean intergenerational sex. They want to eliminate any age of consent laws. Their motto, in fact, is sex before 8 or it's too late. And Lewis is exactly right. They used to march in these gay pride rallies, and then the pro-family community started raising an issue about this, and they finally told NAMBLA, look, we can't let you march in our parade. You're making us look bad. Anyway, go ahead, Lewis. Finish your thought.
And so they wanted, the gay rights movement has attempted to ride the civil rights movement, comparing themselves to the, if you're black, there's nothing you can do about that, and that's who you are, it's your race. But they're trying to compare themselves. And then, of course, NAMBLA now is trying to ride the gay rights coattails, saying, well, if it doesn't make a difference what the sex is, what difference does it make if the age is, and so on and so forth, and the floodgates are open. So I just wanted to say that. I'm praying for Dr. Carson, and I wanted to remind people where the gay rights movement came from, and they are associated, whether they want to try and hide it or not. And I appreciate you taking my call.
All right. Thank you, Lewis. And see, the reality is, this is why I do lump them together. I do not hesitate to lump homosexual activists together with pedophile activists, with those that promote bestiality, because every single one of them is an expression of sexual deviancy. It's sexually abnormal behavior. It is non-normative sexual behavior. It is aberrant sexual behavior. They all have that in common. I mean, there was a time when we as a culture correctly thought about homosexual behavior the same way we think about pedophilia or incest or bestiality. We recoiled at the very idea. We recoiled at the thought because we knew instinctively that it's sexually deviant behavior. And that's what all of them share in common. So I have no hesitation clustering them together. I'm not going to apologize one last bit for that. It's all a cluster of sexually non-normative behavior that no rational society ever ought to approve. And by the way, blacks have gotten the point. They understand that there's no parallel between the gay rights movement and the civil rights movement. Here's a new poll commissioned by Black Entertainment Television, BET, by Bob Johnson, who's the founder. And this was conducted by Zogby, so it's a reputable firm. And they discovered that 55% of African-American adults do not agree with the LGBT community's claim that gay rights are the same as civil rights for blacks. So 55% of blacks say, no, it's not the same. Only 28% say it is the same. So by a 2-to-1 margin, blacks reject the connection between gay rights and civil rights for black. And this is for one simple reason. I don't know what their reason is, but there's one very simple reason why there's no parallel. You're born black, you're not born gay. Sexual preference is exactly that. It is a matter of sexual preference. Sexual behavior is always a matter of choice. Now, nobody's got a choice about the color of skin that they're born with. Nobody's got a choice about that. So that's why it's completely invalid comparison. Let's go to James, Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. James, you're on Focal Point. What's on your mind?
Hi, Ron. This is James. How you doing?
Good. What's on your mind?
I was listening to the discussion over the last few days, actually, about the doctor, and I think from my perspective, he seems to be a fine, godly man.
He is that.
But I think perhaps we shouldn't be surprised when the enemy lashes out the way he does, and I think we should not be apologetic about telling the truth, standing on the truth, and standing up for those who do so. Having that sort of mind frame and that thought, there's discussion in some of the country, I know in the area where I live, about, maybe there needs to be, and I don't know what the right way to do this would be or how, if it would be right, but maybe there needs to begin to become some greater, I know how this is going to sound, but I don't know what the right words are to say, some greater divide between ourselves and those that are pushing twisted political views.
Now, what do you mean? Well, I'm not sure what you mean by a greater divide.
I'm not sure I know how to put it into the proper words. Perhaps another party or other than
I see what you're saying.
Republican
Well,
or,
and see, and I think that's really kind of the issue that the Republican Party is going to have to decide here real quickly. They're going to have to decide if they're going to be the party that supports natural marriage and family values or not. And this would be another question that I'd like people to weigh in on. What do you think will happen to the Republican Party if they support homosexual marriage? Maybe we can take some calls on that in the next hour. But you're exactly right. The Republican Party is trying to be like the Democrats now. Reince Priebus is out there, we support these people. They're welcome in our party. We got a big tent. We got to treat everybody with dignity and respect. And, look what happens. That's what Ben Carson's done all his life. Ben Carson's treated everybody all of his life with dignity and respect. There's not one person who's got a single solitary complaint about the way he's treated people his entire public career. What does he get? He gets vitriol and hatred. That's why Reince Priebus, frankly, my friend, you're a bozo to think that if you treat people with dignity and respect, it's going to be returned to you if you disagree with them about the gay rights movement. It's not going to be returned to you. It's not going to come back to you. You're not going to get respect and dignity in return. You're going to get hatred and vitriol. It's exactly what Ben Carson is experiencing. So you got the Republicans, these addle-brained Republicans out there, softening the party's position on the issue of marriage and the definition of marriage. And that'll be one question maybe for the next hour. What do you think will happen to the Republican Party if they cave on the issue of gay marriage? What do you think will happen to the Republican Party? Reince Priebus is talking like he's ready to cave. You've got a Republican National Committeeman in Michigan, got the story here. He's put a post on his Facebook that talks about all of the health risks involved with homosexual behavior. He's getting enormous pressure from Reince Priebus and other party leaders to resign from the Republican National Committee, to pull his Facebook post down, and he won't do it because every single thing that's posted in that post is the truth about the health risks associated with homosexual behavior. He's not going to pull it down. And he's being attacked not by Democrats, not by gay activists, but by people in his own party. So that becomes the question. What's going to happen to the Republican Party if they go soft, if they collapse and capitulate on gay marriage? Focal Point AFR Talk, back after the news.
American Family Radio, AFR Talk.
The Home Depot recently donated $8,500 to the Human Rights Campaign. The HRC is the nation's largest